Hey folks, this is the Physical and Chemical Changes of Unknown Substances lab. In this lab, we're going to use 5 unknown solids. Solid A is a white crystalline solid. They look like little crystals. Solid B is a white powder. Solid C, it looks a lot like solid A. It's a white crystalline solid. Solid D is kind of made up of gray pellets. They almost look like chocolate shavings. They're kind of like curlicues almost, except they're not chocolate colored. They are gray in color. And solid E is another white powder. In this lab, we'll also be using 3 unknown liquids. Liquid 1 looks clear and colorless, like water. Liquid 2 looks clear and colorless, like water, although it does have a noticeable odor. None of the other substances in this lab have a noticeable odor. And substance 3 is a not clear, it's milky, and light does not pass through it, and it is white in color. So, I've already set up the 10 test tubes with any solid needed for the chemical reaction as required, as shown in your lab handout. But now I'm going to add the liquids so that you can observe any changes that occur. Of course, we need to know what the original substances look like so that we can comment on the changes. We can only say that there's a change if things somehow look different to the way they looked before. So, experiment 1 uses solid A, which is already in the test tube, and liquid 1, which I will add now. And kind of give it a bit of a shake. And I'm not really seeing anything. I'm not hearing anything. I don't feel anything. I don't smell anything. I do see there's still some solid left at the bottom of the test tube. Although it's definitely less solid than what I started with, and now that I've shaken the test tube again, that solid seems to have disappeared. So I don't see solid anymore. The whole test tube just kind of looks like the clear colorless liquid that I added to it. Let's look at reaction 2. Reaction 2, or I should not call it a reaction. We don't know if it's a chemical reaction. That's what you need to determine. We'll call it experiment 2. I'm starting with solid B and liquid 1. And shaking it up. And I still see some solid there at the bottom. I feel like there's less solid than there was before. I don't feel any temperature difference, so I'm not seeing or hearing any bubbling. I'm not smelling any changes. It looks like after that second shake that there is no solid left at the bottom anymore. So again, this looks like a clear, colorless liquid like the liquid 1 that I added to it. Experiment 3 contains mystery substance E, and again, Mystery Liquid 1. You can see that there is some bubbling going on. And you probably can't hear it over the background noise, but there is a gentle sound, kind of like after you've already opened a fizzy drink, not the loud noise you get when you first open the fizzy drink, but kind of the bubbles popping noise that you get after you've opened a fizzy drink. I'm not feeling any temperature change. But I do see bubbles. And I do hear bubbles. Let's look at experiment number 4. Here, the solid that I've added to the test tube is solid B, and now I'm adding liquid 2 to it. I certainly heard something there. That feels colder to me than the previous test tubes, but it's hard to tell without using a thermometer. Also remember, liquid 2 was the one that I said had a strong smell, and there seems to be less smell now than there was before. Let's look at chemical reaction number 5. In this one, we're using substance C, and we're adding liquid 2. That noise you heard was me getting to the end of that bottom of liquid. It was not some exciting event going on in the test tube. There you go. Sorry, needed a new test tube, a new bottle of liquid 2. Okay. Looks like I've got some of the solids stuck to the walls of the test tube. There's definitely still some solid left at the bottom of the test tube, although it seems like it's less than I had before. I'm not feeling any substantial temperature differences, and it looks like most of the solid is has disappeared, so it kind of looks clear and colorless, like the way liquid 2 does look. And when I smell, it does still smell like the strong smell that chemical 2 has. Next, we have substance D, the gray pellets, with liquid 1. And shake it up a bit more. So it looks like the same amount of the gray solid that I started with. It doesn't seem to be getting smaller or disappearing or anything. And it looks like I still have a clear colorless liquid on top. No noticeable temperature change. And none of my starting substances had any smell to begin with, and I don't smell any smell now. Test tube 7, reaction or experiment 7. Again, I have solid D, but this time I'm adding liquid 2. Excuse me. Again, okay. This definitely looks different to when I added liquid 1, because this looks cloudy in color. And it's gentle, but I can hear bubbles popping. And it's subtle, but I can see bubbles as well. This also feels to the touch warmer than any of the other test tubes that I have had in my hand so far. Experiment 8. This time I'm going to use liquid 3, and this is with solid C. Remember, liquid 3 is white and cloudy, and the cloudiness makes it a little hard for me to see whether solid C is still there or whether it's disappeared. A little hard to tell. I don't feel anything, any changes, or I don't see or hear any bubbles. Test tube 9. I'm going to use, this is going to be 2 liquids this time. I'm going to have liquid 2 and then liquid 3. Give that a little bit of a shake. Oh, okay. I'm going to move the white paper so you can maybe see that a little bit better. When I shook this test tube that had the white liquid 3 in it compared to my other test tube that had white liquid 3 in it, experiment 8 leaves a little bit of residue on the side of the walls, but it's a smooth, it eventually kind of runs back down to the bottom of the test tube. The kind of liquid doesn't stay clung to the sides of the test tube. Test tube 9 seems chunky. I've got chunks of solid stuck to the walls of the test tube. So test tube 9 certainly looks different to test tube 8. For the last reaction, we are using solid C with heat. So there's no liquid in this test tube at all. We just have heat. And I've already put solid C in the test tube. I'm going to move the test tube rack out of the way so that the area around the Bunsen burner is not cluttered. And I'll pan up a little bit so that you can see better what's happening in the test tube. So I'm just going to gently heat solid C. In fact, I'm going to make this flame a little less hot, just so it's a little bit more of a gentle heating instead of a harsh heating. Okay. I can see around the edges that, let me just hold my hand behind it, maybe you can see it better. A little bit of color change around the outside of the test tube. Seems to be looking kind of glossy and shiny, like it's wet. I'll get my white piece of paper again. Okay, it's starting to change color. Again, looking a little glossy and wet against the sides of the test tube. Oh, not just glossy and wet, but a little bit of bubbling there. So we've got a little bit of a color change going on, but also I'm definitely smelling a difference. It's a smell that reminds me of toasting marshmallows. We seem to be getting a little bit darker in color. Certainly looks like this substance is boiling, but remember, we didn't start with a liquid. We didn't start with a liquid here. This was just a solid that we started with. I don't see any solid at all anymore. It all seems to be dark in color. Bubbly, liquidy, and a smell that wasn't there before. It smells a little bit less like pleasantly toasted marshmallows now. It smells a little bit more like burned marshmallows. And if you can see, there's some also condensation forming at the top opening of the test tube. So that's what I needed you to observe in this experiment. I hope this helps.